Welcome back to day 2 of the Dopamine Detox that I'm doing. I'm currently heading up to New Hampshire to get some spring water, and I use findaspring.org to find this one, and it's actually free, which is a lot better than the old video I made where they were charging like 75 cents a gallon. Anyways, the past day, like a full review of day 1, it wasn't that hard to go without my phone. I think my main usage on my phone is like down to 30 minutes or something of screen time. I'll probably toss that up like right here or something. But last night my family was watching the new Wonka movie, or I'm not sure how new it is, but the newest one, while I was cooking and eating my food. And I found my mind, like I was trying to focus on my food, focus on the taste and the flavor, and be fully aware of my eating. But my mind kept like drifting off to trying to hear what was going on in the movie. And it definitely was not the easiest thing to keep bringing my mind back to center, bring my mind back on topic. But I think it was definitely easier than I've had it in the past. Then also, one of the other questions I've had on this channel that I've talked about is people back in the 1900s and the 1800s, before technology, before the distractions, were they more mindful? Were they more aware? Were they more like conscious than we were? Because at least I have this tendency to romanticize past periods in history and be like, oh, look at, I pick the one or two issues I have, which is like distraction of technology and like all lack of pesticides or something. I'm like, oh, well, they didn't have those issues back then. It must have been amazing. But like, you ignore all the other medical benefits and everything else that's gone down, not to mention society, like changes within society. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, I don't think they were like more conscious, more aware, or had an easier time of it, because I think they would have been stuck in what I call the work mode, which is like unconsciously just going through and working, because modern society has like taken away so much of the chores and the daily labor we have to do. No longer do you have to spend hours washing clothes or cleaning dishes. I mean, you can still clean them by hand, but it's so much easier when you don't have to go get a bucket, grab the water, and then heat the water up. And there's all these things, I mean, getting heat on demand, electricity on demand. I think back then there would have been enough distractions, unless you were like royalty or like high nobility. I don't think you would have been wealthy enough to actually have the time alone to really practice mindfulness, really practice higher states of consciousness. I think that's also part of why nobility existed, why we had kings back then. It was because for these people, they didn't have to put in the work. They didn't have to do everything else. They could spend their time thinking about how to make society better. They could spend their time thinking about trade and everything else with these other nations they're surrounded by. I'm not saying that all kings were good or all kings acted in the best interest of their people, but I think that's why we had kings, was so that someone in society was able to be conscious enough, because they didn't have to be working constantly to survive. Someone was able to make decisions and have a wider view on what needed to happen, make sure grain was put away for the winter, make sure trade was established between nations, make sure wars were not being fought, make sure society was running the way society should be running. We live in one of the easiest times humanity's ever experienced. So for the vast majority of people, they have time in their day because they don't have to go out and harvest wheat because they don't have to go out and hunt whales for oil or something weird like that. Like, you can practice mindfulness. You can have time to enjoy life and look around and slow down and think about stuff and just become more conscious of it. I know I say that a lot, but it's really important. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, thanks to the internet, you can now see how other people live their lives. You're no longer limited to like only 100 social interactions. So your perspective of the world is like 100 people. And you're like, okay, well, these 100 people have the same attitude I do. I guess this is just what life is. No, you can look online and you can be like, well, say you live in some small town in Appalachia that has no jobs, and I'm just playing the stereotypes here, but it's like extremely poor. Like, you might think that's all life is, but no, you can go online nowadays and you can look and see what other people's lives are. You can see how they're living, and you can use that information to choose to elevate your own state to make your life better. Because if you don't know what's out there, if you don't even know that it's possible to have a better life, to live a happier life, then you don't have anything to strive for. You're like, okay, well, this is just what life is. I'm just going to exist. But that it also comes with a double edge of, like, you can then do the bad side of that, where you look at other people's lives and you're like, I want that, I need that. Like, you just, what's it called? Envy is jealousy. I mean, you just have jealousy of someone else's life. And that's not what I'm recommending. What I'm recommending is looking and seeing how other people live their lives and asking yourself, do I want to take anything from how they're living and bring it into my own life? Do I want to, like, is my attitude better? Do they have any mental frameworks or any self-talk that they do which helps them? Like, there's so much information out there nowadays about how to elevate your own consciousness, how to elevate your own presence and your own state, that it's easier than ever, I think, to actually do it. And that's one thing I'm actually really happy about, because for a while I was like, like, society must be, like, going in a bad direction. We're becoming less mindful. We're becoming addicted to our phone. And yes, people are becoming addicted to their phone. I do have phone addiction that I'm, like, doing the detox to get rid of. Like, and my phone addiction is, like, I might spend 6 hours on my phone a day between podcasts, making YouTube videos, watching YouTube videos, texting people, calling people. But I'm really trying now to get that down below an hour a day, because the phone is still a useful tool, but I'm really questioning whether or not I should be using it and being more conscious of it, setting intentions before I go on it, and just making sure I don't go off into a derp state of, like, waking up half an hour later and, like, where did that time go? Like, what's going on? Like, I know it's not really what's going on, but, like, you just lose track of that time. Another thing I've realized is, even though I might not be distracting myself with my phone, I might not be distracting myself with music, podcasts, or anything else, you can still distract yourself from being present by getting caught in your own head and thinking. There's some nuance to this. So, it's not really like, you ever just start thinking about something when you're on a walk, or, you know, if you ever do meditation, you have a thought and you might decide to see where this thought leads you, and you go down this path, and then, like, half an hour later, you kind of, like, it's a little bit like daydreaming a little bit, where you can kind of zone out and you get lost in thought. That's exactly what I meant. You get lost in thought, and you're not being conscious, you're not being aware, you're not being, like, present and in state. You're in your head, you might not be distracting yourself, but you're still not present. And there is a distinction there. So for anyone else who wants to try something similar, for anyone else who is putting away technology and trying to be more present, there is a difference between, just because your phone is down does not mean you're present. Just because you're not listening to any distractions doesn't mean you're present. Being aware of your body, how your body feels, your environment, how your environment is looking, that is being present. Like, noticing thoughts and then allowing them to go by is being present. Noticing sensations and allowing them to go by is being present. So I just want to make sure people understand there is a distinction between the two. And so this is the spring I found in Exeter, New Hampshire, and free. It's amazing, and the water actually tastes a lot better than the one I paid for. So I got all my bottles from my kombucha addiction, and gonna fill them up. So I'm giving someone a ride, and they're taking a little longer than I thought. So I decided to meditate. But halfway into the meditation, I kind of doze off, and then my alarm goes off, marking the end of my meditation, and I'm like, oh, no, it wasn't exactly what I had planned, but it was kind of exactly what I needed. I feel a lot more alert, a lot more well-rested, and I'm very happy that I didn't go on my phone. I didn't give myself some form of stimulation in the form of music, YouTube, or an audiobook, and I actually just felt how I felt in the moment. And even though that was not necessarily meditating, I still feel really nice right now.